Cool. Well, there we are. We're live. Hey guys, there's a new face on this town hall, which is Matt, Topia's CTO. So we brought Matt in just to give us a bit of an update on what he's been working on, what he's been spending his time on. We've got quite an exciting feature in the pipeline, which is Freedom Explorer. So Matt's going to talk a little bit about what he's been working on there and what it looks like. So Matt, do you want to actually just in the pipeline? Do you want to intro yourself, Matt, first, and then I can do a bit of an update and then hand over to you for the Freedom Explorer.
Sure. How's it going? My name is Matt Raleigh. Joined Topia in, October now, I think. So it's coming up on 6 months, which is crazy. We've been working on quite a lot. I've been in and around startups for like the last 10 years, mostly in the fintech space. Kind of took a year sabbatical to work on some video game projects and some personal projects in the year leading up to meeting Logan and joining Topia. And then, we've just kind of been partying since then. So that's my background at a super high level. And help Logan out with the website, the app, our new web app, help kind of drive the product roadmap forward. And I think you're muted, Logan.
Logan's muted.
Yep.
Sorry about that. I was talking to myself. Cool. Well, thanks for that intro, Matt. A bit of an update on my end. I think last week I spoke a little bit about how we were building out a webinar funnel for our 5.0 community. So we're pushing that funnel live today, actually. So today's going to be the first webinar, which I do, which is going to be live in about an hour, which is an hour and a half. So I've been spending a lot of this week and the back end of the last week working on that. I think with stuff like this, there are always a million kind of loose ends which you need to tie up before you can push something like these live. So it was a bit of a late night last night finding all those loose ends and working out how to tie them all together. But I've been working on that, and it might just be quite interesting. I'll just quickly share my screen to kind of show everyone what it looks like, and I can talk a little bit about the process we went through. Because I think last week I spoke through the kind of last version of the landing page, but this is what we're working on. Can you see, Matt? Can you see my screen there? Or it is sharing. Cool. So this is the landing page which we put together, all pushing people to reserve their spot, which will take them to the webinar, which, as I said, will be going on every single day. It was an interesting, and we've spoken about this a couple of times, that side hustles have quite a bad rep, and there's a lot of kind of scammy content out there. So the thought process behind the webinar was, how can we prove to people that this is legitimate, and how can we deliver value straight away, immediately, to whoever's coming through this landing page. So the idea with the webinar is, what I really want is, once people watch the webinar and when they come out of the webinar, they should have a roadmap to get their first side hustle set up, and they should, in theory, be able to go off and start following the frameworks I talk about in that webinar. And then at the end of the webinar is also a good opportunity to talk about why we built the 5.0 community and why we think the 5.0 community can help people reach that goal of replacing their income with a side hustle much sooner. So that's the kind of premise of the webinar. We are also another kind of initiative we put forward as part of this webinar flow is to be much more data driven. So towards the end of this week, I'm going to be starting to build a lot of kind of A/B tests with this website. We want to trial different copy, different colors, different images. And as I said, just be really focus on that data to see, whether we're converting more people with certain copies, certain images, and putting that all together into a bit of a funnel just to really fine tune it and optimize it. And I think, reflecting back on kind of Topia's journey as a whole, I think I've always been a bit kind of blasé when it's come to data. And I think, so many things are going on in a startup, and there's so much on the to-do list. It's quite easy to overlook the data in the early days and to just continue plowing forward. So as part of this quarter, I'm looking forward to getting really granular with the data and letting the data drive more of our decisions as opposed to more of a finger in the air approach, which we've been doing to date. So yeah, in order to do that, I've been really focused on putting in place the right systems and processes to first of all kind of harvest that data, and then also to showcase that data in a way where it's very easy for me and the rest of the team to digest as well. So this week will be the kind of trial run of the webinar flow. It will be the trial run of collecting all that data. And then hopefully next week I can start talking about what that data looks like and how we're assessing that data to drive kind of different variations in different decision-making processes within that webinar funnel. So that's mainly been what I've been focused on. And, like I said, Matt's been taking up the reins on the product side of things. And we're kind of always balancing those two elements with Topia now, which is the community and then the product itself. So that might be a good time to hand over to you, Matt, to talk a little bit about what's going on with the product.
Sure. Yeah. So I guess as a, larger theme in our product development, we've kind of switched focus a little bit from traditional Fire, I should say, into side hustles and more of this cash flow, Topia FI kind of element. And we're trying to weave sort of more of that flavor into the product because we feel, pretty confident about where we are as a Fire tracker in terms of we've got great features to track your net worth, map your journey to your FI number, track your investment rate. Our Tinker feature we feel pretty solid about right now. Obviously, there's always more to do, but just thinking, how can we kind of serve this community in a new way, and looking at things through the lens of like freedom today, right, versus hitting my FI number and getting freedom forever. A lot of people don't really realize how accessible freedom right now is with their current portfolio, their current income streams, or how accessible it is to start a side hustle and kind of cover that gap that they might need in their expenses to quit their job. So to that end, we've been working on a large new feature in the app that we're calling our Freedom Explorer, which takes a look at your portfolio and your current income streams and helps you evaluate sort of how much of that income you can walk away from. So basically, how can you quit your job, right? And showing you the impacts of if you quit your job, how long is that decrease in income sustainable for, given your current portfolio, which is kind of a combination of looking at your safe withdrawal rate and how much you could, safely pull out of that portfolio every month, as well as looking at your passive income streams and side hustles, and then kind of opening the door to show you what the impact of starting kind of a new side hustle would be. So an example might be, say you've got a portfolio of $300,000. Well, you can safely pull out about $1,000 a month from that based on the rules of safe withdrawal rate. And say your expenses are $2,000 a month, then you've got $1,000 a month sort of gap to make up in your income, right? And trying to kind of surface those sort of new and interesting ways of looking at your financial situation versus just net worth, what level FI am I at, how far am I from full FI or my lean FI or whatever, where I'm actually going to pull that trigger and quit my job, instead of like, where am I at right now and what would it take for me to walk away from some of those commitments today, even though I'm maybe not full FI, maybe not even pursuing full FI, just kind of giving you a new lens to look through your portfolio through. So it's been really fun, really creative, a lot of good kind of product development energy on the team right now, just really iterating, trying to figure out what is the best way that we can serve this community and what is a tool that's actually going to be impactful and people realizing how attainable, financial freedom is for a lot of situations quickly, So really excited about what we got cooking.
Yeah, me too. And I think kind of to riff on what you were saying there, Matt, I speak to people all the time and they've got, maybe they're 20, 30, 40% of the way to FI. And I always call it this kind of slog where they're a little bit demotivated because they're looking at like 6, 7, 8 years until they hit their ultimate kind of FI goal, and they've fine-tuned all their savings. They're, doing everything they can to their mind to kind of get there as quickly as possible. And I really think what the power of Freedom Explorer to that person is they can come in and just see how much freedom they have. Like boom, like you've got $1,000, $2,000 a month of freedom, which is quite powerful in itself, because you can then start thinking, maybe if I dial down my monthly expenditure, I could get the 2,000 to equal each other. So I'm spending 2,000 and I'm bringing in 2,000. Or like you said, there's that delta there. And there are so many ways out there where you can close that delta, whether it's a side hustle, whether it's, a part-time job, or going down to like a 2-day week or a 1-day week, and just slowly getting that gap to close. But I think, the real challenge with Freedom Explorer from product standpoint, and also more of a kind of broader standpoint as well, is just how we can get people out of that mindset of, the only way to reach freedom is to hit that FI number and go through that sort of traditional path. And I guess, Grant, you've always been at the forefront of kind of the traditional FI, but then bringing in all these accelerants and looking to close that gap as quickly as possible. I guess in your experience, having interacted with thousands of people in the FI community, is it like the older generation of the FI community, which is very traditional mindset, have a really very traditional mindset when it comes to FI? And do you think the younger generation of the FI community are going to be much more open to this hybrid of barista side hustles and kind of choosing their own flavor of FI?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely skews younger, just because people who are interested in entrepreneurship tend to be a little bit younger because they just have more time in their life and less responsibilities. But one of the things that I've seen is just as the barrier to entry to launching a business, specifically an online business, just continues to drop. People of all ages, are starting to test different ways to make money. And so I think, I think about some people I know that have successful YouTube channels in the FI space, who are, over 50 and launched those channels over the last 2 or 3 years. And, those things take time to get off the ground, but if you stay consistent with them, they really can get to a level where I know this one couple that, their YouTube videos aren't even that great. It's just they've been doing it now for 3 years, and they're making $5,000 plus a month, which is more than enough money for them to travel full time. So it's just, you don't have to think about this in terms of creating the biggest, best, most profitable, craziest business. It can be a means to an end, and you can pick something that ultimately you enjoy doing. So it's something that you enjoy doing while you're doing the other things in your life, so it makes your life better while you're making that additional money. And so, this couple like really just loved the idea of like, hey, we like fiddling with cameras, and we're going to try to figure this out, right? And so now they've been able to fully cover their costs and not even have to touch their investments when they were already financially independent in the traditional sense before they even launched this side business. So the whole idea is that you start this thing a little bit earlier, or even to the point of fivepreneurship, you can start it at the beginning and just get to the point where like you, Logan, it's just like you're making X amount of thousands of dollars per month to cover your living expenses. It de-risks your life considerably when you're then able to spend the rest of your time building something with a bigger vision like Topia, right? It's like neither has to be mutually exclusive or exclusionary. So I think that is happening at all age groups, and it's just, it's a really exciting time to be alive. And I've kind of watched this happen in real time, and it's just cool to see that people now have a lot more options to really choose their own adventure. And I think from the beginning, I've always believed that FI it really is a choose your own path, and it's kind of like take what adds value to your life and leave the rest, and test things out and experiment, and leave those things that don't add value or don't help you live a life that you want, and then those things that do, kind of double down on them and turn yourself into just a more effective consumer and money making machine. And then just continue to adapt and look for new opportunities, because things are always changing, and things that were opportunities today might not be tomorrow, and then vice versa, things that weren't opportunities yesterday are today. So it's a very dynamic environment that I think in some cases can really exhaust people, because there are just so many options and so much narrative. And I know that's one of the core visions of Topia and the fivepreneur community, is just to really focus on those tried and true tactics that are working today, and making it as accessible and easy as possible, for someone to get started and start making money on their own terms. because that, often picking the idea and getting started and getting the support is really just the toughest part. And once you've done that, then you can, refine as you go. So yeah, really, really exciting time. I could have anticipated this, a little bit, when I wrote Financial Freedom. I do have a whole section on just, what having a consistent side hustle income, how much it actually reduces the amount of money that you need for financial independence. But I was thinking about it in terms of offsetting the larger number, but still pursuing the larger number, as opposed to, being more, I'd say, radically accelerated in terms of focusing on getting there first, to build some space and freedom and options in your life, and then pursuing, perhaps the larger vision. So it is definitely a refinement, of the original premise, and it's super cool to see.
And I think on that point, something I've been thinking about a lot is I spent a bit of time on the weekend kind of documenting my like side hustle master plan, just in terms of kind of what I want to be focusing on this year and like where I want to take my hustles. And I've got this kind of big list of kind of ones I do want to set up, and I've got like estimated numbers of revenue I think I can make from each of those side hustles. And I was kind of building out those numbers, and then it was kind of just an interesting thought process I was going through. It was like, do I just go kind of balls to the wall, set up as many additional income streams as possible, and just build this web of income streams like kind of coming in around me, which is quite intense, quite a lot of energy would have to go into it? Or is it more the kind of slow and steady approach where I've already got a couple of side hustles set up, they're all doing pretty well, I can grow them consistently, and it's just about kind of like how hard do you like dial up the lever, and I guess the trade-offs around that and the different implications. I think naturally I'm always kind of full speed ahead and supercharge my way through life, whatever I'm doing. So it was veering more towards kind of multiple income streams. But yeah, it's that trade-off as well. And I know, Grant, I think you had a similar situation where you went a little bit too hard earlier on, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you can afford to do that when you're in your mid-20s. Some of the mistakes that I made that I wish I wouldn't have done was, I didn't really think about how the sum can be greater than the parts. And I say this, vis-a-vis your FBA side hustles, Logan. I know that now, with a couple of them, you're thinking about, how do they all fit together, in terms of the Scotland focus, like the cohesive whole. And I think that's very smart, because that makes it easier to get a customer who might be interested in all of your products. And it makes it a lot more attractive, probably from an acquisition standpoint, because someone can buy a collection, of products that are all related. And then if they have, already existing traffic sources or a business that they can tack it onto. And so I wasn't thinking that way, like I was kind of like just doing tons of things that were just all over the place and disparate. So I think that no matter what you decide, like picking a niche within a niche, I would say, and that really, so you kind of pick like the how am I going to do this, and then you pick like the what am I going to do, and then thinking about like how do these things all relate together, is something that I didn't do, and I encourage others to do, just because it might not be that first product that takes off, but it's that second or third, and the email list that you built for the first product that didn't take off, you can see the second idea, or you know what I mean. So I think finding those synergies, because the synergies itself are what unlock the leverage, and it's really scaling any venture or making more money with any venture. You yourself only have a limited amount of time a day, and so how do you ultimately make better use of that? It's not through even more effectively using your time. It's like creating things that ultimately have leverage, that are doing the work. And that's one of the reasons I love SEO so much. It's like you write these pieces of content that 5 years later, they're still working for you, right? And it's like you do enough of this that you have all this leverage. Same thing if you build the right products and people are like finding them and reviewing them, those products themselves become part of this web that someone's like, oh, I really they search for X product. I really like that maple syrup that I bought from you. Right. And then they get in and they're like, wow, you have a waffle maker. You know what I mean? Like, how cool. And then they buy your waffle maker because they've just had such a good experience with your syrup. You know what I mean? And, you can just take examples like that, as far as you want. But I didn't really think about that early on. And I think about that a lot now, just with like the websites that I buy, and just trying to stay laser focused. on one particular area. Because once you start doing this, it's so easy to get pulled in a lot of different directions. Like having a bunch of FBA products that aren't related is not nearly as likely, it doesn't have as much scale as having 15 products that are related.
Yeah, definitely. And I also think on that note, it's, once you've set up like one or two side hustles and you kind of understand the process and you've got a bit more confidence, you kind of unlock the ability to kind of pick your horse and to kind of stack the deck in your favor. And when I think about, if I could tell like a younger version of me about Amazon FBA, I would tell them to be like more focused on the products, and you can find products which are kind of higher value, like easy, like small enough to ship. So you're making a bigger margin and not being hit with heavy fees from Amazon. And a great example I was reading into last week is you can get these like kitchen knives, which are actually very expensive, like $100 plus. Some of them are kind of closer to $200, but they're very small, easy to package. So you get very high margin. The Amazon FBA postage fees and storage fees are very low as well. And it's something like that compared to like Highland Cow, which is pretty big and pretty fluffy and a bit of a pain to store and post. Like those different way ups, I think you kind of unlock that as you progress through the process and framework as well.
There's also the piece of like, I think more and more affiliate marketers are thinking about this is like, what physical product can I sell through my digital platform? Yeah. And the thing is, you build an audience and you build that upfront traffic, then it's like often, you're promoting other people's products, right? So the question is like, what product can I build myself to insert into this mix that best aligns with my audience to leverage that scale? And you see it like at crazy levels with like Mr. Beast on YouTube with his chocolate company and his burger company, and leveraging all of these like physical products and businesses within digital ecosystem. And I think that's one of the things that it's the real power when you have the product and the traffic, right? And you don't have to just rely on Amazon searches or whatever. And yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It reminds me, I had dinner with these two other side hustlers 2 weeks ago, and one of them had 2 million people on TikTok, and he only made money through creating content for other people. And this other guy sold blow up paddle boards, and he was doing 2 million a month in revenue. And then you could just see them like talk about the problems, and like the paddleboard is all about, I need to grow, like I'm paying like too much for my traffic and it's costing me too much. And then the content guy was saying, I've kind of hit this ceiling where I can only produce so much content in one day. I can't make any more. I can't actually produce any more content. So I've hit the ceiling in terms of how much revenue I can make. And you could just see them kind of, if only they came together under one umbrella or came up with some agreement, they could unlock the best of both worlds. And all right, I've just seen we've got a couple of comments coming through as well. So one is directed at you, Grant. I don't know, can you see them, Grant, or do you want me to read out to you?
I can now. Okay. Grant, you're fired. Which one? Grant, you're fired, right? How much of your week do you spend on all of your projects? From Evangelia. So I've been FI now for over 7 years, and through that process, I've had a number of since then, I've had a number of companies, including taking a year and a half off, and now I spend about 20 hours a week working on my website holding company, which is MMG Media. I would say about 20 hours a week, and then I spend about 30 hours a week writing my second book. Those are the two biggest focus areas. And then I spend say 3 to 5 hours a week supporting Topia and other projects. So I'd probably work total about 55 hours a week on projects, give or take, on average. Sometimes more, sometimes quite a bit less, depending upon the immediate need of the week. So yeah, I am working, quote unquote, pretty full time at this point. But there are weeks when I'll only work 2 days, for example, if I have something else going on that is takes more immediate attention.
Cool. And in the last 2 minutes, I shall address the other question, which is from Alex. So Alex is asking, is the Fivepreneur community separate from Topia? Very good question. So they're not. They're both together. I think they're both solving different problems at the moment. The Fivepreneur community is completely aimed at providing all the resources and guidance to help people set up a side hustle within 90 days. And Topia is very much helping people track and monitor their progress to FI and also understanding their freedom. But what we really see as a kind of ultimate vision of Topia is when you bring these two things together, you get the ultimate combo to help people unlock freedom in their life as quickly as possible. And the kind of narrative there is to unlock freedom in your life as quickly as possible, you need to understand where you are in your journey, and you need to understand how much freedom you have right now. And that's what the app does. That's what Topia does. You come onto it, you input all your numbers, and you get out of it where you are and how much freedom you have. Then we have the Fivepreneur community, which we're intertwining in the app kind of slowly and steadily. So they'll start kind of acting more as one. But the Fivepreneur community is then there to help people radically accelerate how quickly they can unlock that freedom through setting up side hustles. Because what we believe in and what we know is the quickest way to freedom in your life is through leveraging additional income streams. So they're definitely one of the same, and a big part of our kind of product roadmap post Freedom Explorer is intertwining them more throughout the whole experience. So yeah, great question, and yeah, hopefully that answered it for you. So that pretty much brings us to the end of the town hall. Big thanks, Matt, for jumping on and introing yourself and talking through what you're up to. And thanks for the questions, guys. Good to see them come through. But yeah, otherwise we shall see you next week.
Later.
Thanks, guys.